This conference will now be recorded.
Hello and welcome again. So in this video we are going to discuss about some more concepts of Java. So the concept that we are going to discuss now is method overloading. So in case of Java, in a class you can implement two or more than two methods with the same name. And if you implement two or more method with the same name, then that concept is called method overloading. But when you want to write two or more than two methods having the same name, there should be at least one difference in those method in their parameters. The parameter difference can be in terms of number of parameters or the type of parameters. So we'll discuss this with the help of one example. So if you look at this slide, there are four test methods. So here this one is test method name is test, here also test and test. So four test methods are there. So basically what we are doing in this case is we are performing method overloading. So these methods should have at least one difference in terms of their parameters. So if you closely observe these four methods, this method is not having any parameter. So this method is having only one parameter of type integer. Next third method is having two parameter, both are of type integer. Fourth method is a single parameter, but it is of type double. So these two methods, method number second and method number fourth, are one parameter method, but their type is different. So as we discussed in the previous slide, if you want to write two or more than two methods in a class having the same name, in that case there should be at least one difference. So there is one difference in among all the methods that are written over here. The difference can be in terms of number of parameter. For example, in this case and in this case, there is only one parameter, and in the third method there are two parameter. Or the difference can be in terms of type. So in case of second and fourth method, the number of parameters uh, uh, are one, but the type of the parameter is different. In case of the second method, the type is integer, and in case of the fourth method, the type of the parameter is double. So which one will be called? It depends at the time of calling with how many number of parameters you are calling the method. So again, there is a simple example. We are creating the overload demo class object. So this is creating the object of the overload demo class using the new keyword as we discussed earlier. So this line is creating the object OB. Now the important point is we are calling this OB with OB the test method, because we haven't mentioned any parameter over here. So the Java will call at this time this method without any parameter. So what you will get with this statement is no parameter. This will be the result on that will appear on your screen. And then after the completion of this, control will return back to the next line here, and in the second line we are calling this test method with 10. So there are two methods with one parameter, but we are passing the integer parameter over here. So this line will call the second method, so this one, and 10 will be passed to the A as when it will be called. And when this test method will be executed, it will print the value of A, that is 10, that is being passed from this method call. Then the next line will be called. So we are calling the test method with two parameters. So that means this call will basically invoke this method, and the value 10 will be passed to the first parameter, that is A, and the value second 20 will be passed on to the second parameter, that is B. And then when the body of the method will be executed, you will get 10 and 20 on the same line. And when this method execution finishes, control will come back to the next line. So in the next line, we are calling the test method with one parameter, because parameter is of type double. So here the Java will call that method, test method, that receives double type parameter. So it will call this. So the value 123.25 will get copied into A, and this will give you the result A here, right? And then this method is also returning A into A, so you will get scale of A back to this method, and that will get copied into the result variable, and the next line will print the value of the result. So it's quite easy. So the important points I would like to repeat those. In case of method overloading, two or more methods can have the same name, but there should be at least one difference in their parameter, and the difference in the return type is immaterial. So if the method parameters are same but their return type is different, then the methods cannot be overloaded. So keep in mind the difference, at least one difference should be there in their parameters, then only the method overloading can be performed. So here is the another example, and in this example again we have the test method, but this time three test methods are there. One is without parameter, other method is with the two integer type parameter, and the third one is with the double parameters. But here only one line is important that I want to show you. We are creating the object over here first. This is clearly visible. There is one variable I, and if you look at this line, rest of the lines are clear and we already discussed those. If you look at this function call, method call, we are calling the type function with the integer value, I is integer, but there is no method that has one parameter, and that is of type integer, right? So in this case, what the Java will do, Java will look for a method that can take one parameter, and that parameter is also compatible with the actual parameter. So actual parameter is an integer. It can be converted to double implicitly. So that means that Java will call here this method, right? So in case of method overloading, if if you are calling the method with some different data type, and that data type can be automatically converted to a parameter type whose whose type of method is there in the class, then that method will be called. So here, because I is compatible with the double, so the Java will call with this line this method. So this is the important point in this case. So the next line will also call the double type, because here the parameter, actual parameter is double. So the method with the double parameter will be called. So this line will also call the same method this, and this value will get copied into A as we discussed earlier. And the method definition, that is system.out.println, will print the value of A. Then the next topic is the constructors can also be overloaded just like methods, because the constructors are also the special type of methods whose name is same as of class name. So in this example, we have used three constructor. One is this with three parameters. Other one is the constructor without any parameter. So this is the second one, and the third one that is receiving a double type. double type value as a parameter. So three are there. The basic rule will remain the same. In case of constructor overloading also, there in the constructor there should be at least one difference in their parameter. So there is one difference. See, in case of first constructor, three parameters are there. In case of second constructor, no parameter is there. In case of third constructor, one parameter is there, that is of type double. So these three constructors are basically different from one another in terms of the number of parameters also. So the constructor will be called, it depends at the time of object creation what you have passed. So that is shown over here. The rest of the part of the program is shown this. So because here on the right hand side we are using new to create the object, and within the parenthesis we have written three values. So in this case the constructor with the three parameters will be called. So 10, 20 and 15 will be passed on to W, H and D of this constructor, and then the width, height and depth instance variable will be initialized. So if we have already uh, discussed this in detail, so I'm not going to show you it diagrammatically again. So the next line, it will call the uh, constructor without any parameter. So this right hand side, so this will be called, and it will initialize width, height and depth to -1. Then with the third line, this new box 7 will invoke a constructor with single parameter only, because we are passing integer from here and there is no constructor with integer parameter. So that integer will call this constructor, because integer can be implicitly casted to double type. So this will be invoked in that case with 7. So that means width, height and depth will initialize to 7 only, because 7 is passed from that function. So after calling these three, the volume will be called with each of the objects. So my box 1 will call the volume, and this will be called, this we have already discussed. So it will multiply width, height and depth values of that instance or object. So because the width, height and depth of my box 1 are 10, 20 and 15, so these three will get multiplied and you will get the result back in the variable volume, and then the next line will print the volume. In the rest of the part of this program, we are calling the volume function again with the different objects. So these will also return you the volume. So we have called the volume twice again with the different objects, and then we are printing the value. So these three lines are same, 3 to 4 lines as we discussed over here in these two lines. So I'm not going to discuss these in detail. If you have any doubt regarding this, you can leave your doubts in the uh, chat box. So one of you has asked one question that I have already answered, that in case of method overloading, the difference should be there in the arguments or parameter. The difference in return type is immaterial. So Tania Hasija is asking this question, right? So test void test and int test, if the two test methods are not having any parameter, then these two methods cannot be overloaded. So here is the another program. In this program, we are passing object as parameters. So there are two techniques that we will discuss in the coming slides as well. One is called call by value, other is called call by reference, or pass by value, pass by reference. So this will discuss in the coming slides as well. So in this slide, we have a class named test. In this class, we have one constructor with the two integer type parameters and one method equal to, this method is returning boolean and it's receiving one object of type test. So how this will work, I'm going to show you this. So first important point is this line will create the object new test 20. So this is creating the object, this is your object, and this object will have two instance variables. One is a, so this is a, this is b. So a and b are the instance variables of the test class. This 100 will be passed to I when this constructor will be called, and 22 will be passed to j. And then when the body of the constructor will be called, this a and b will be initialized to 100 and 22 respectively. So this line is calling this constructor, right, test constructor, and the instance variable will a and b will get initialized to 100 and 20 respectively, and this object will be referred by the reference variable ob1, right? So this is ob1. Then another object will be created with the same values, 20, 100 and 22. So this is another object, and the values are the same, 100. First, a value of a is 100, value of b is 22, and this is being referred by the another variable, uh, that is ob2, reference to the object. And next line is we are creating the third object with value mm, -1. I'm going to show that also, because this concept is important and it needs clarification. And in this case, the a and b will be initialized to -1, and this object is being referred to by the reference variable ob3, right? So ob3 is there. So the important thing is, if you call with this uh, here in within the println method, we are calling the method equal to. So ob1 is the calling object, and ob2 will be passed as a reference. So when you will pass ob2 as a reference, that means this o will start referring to ob2, because ob2 will be passed as a parameter. So o will start referring to this ob2. Now this object has two references, ob2 as well as o. So when this method will be called, after passing ob2 to o, the body of the method will be executed. So this part, this if structure will be executed, and in this structure we are writing o dot a, because o is referring to this object. So o dot a is 100. A, here we are using just a means the value of the calling object. So this calling object is ob1. So this a is basically of ob1, ob1, a of ob1. So this is also 22, 100, sorry. So 100 is equal to 100 is true. Then the second condition is being evaluated, o dot b. O dot b is this one, 22. This b also refers to this, is the value of the same object, that is the calling object ob1, and its value is 22 also. So 22 is equal to 22 is true. So this method will return true. So this is a boolean constant, true, and that's why we have written the return type boolean over here. So this will return true, and ob1, then this method will print over here ob1 equal ob2, this will return true, and you will get ob1 equal to ob2 is equal to true. But in this case, because the value of ob1 and ob3 are different, so you will get false from here, because these two conditions will evaluate to false. So this will return false, and here you will get the result false. So you can verify this result yourself. So again, the important point in this case is when you are passing the object are passed by reference. So here the OB2 will be passed as a reference to O. That means the for O separate memory will not be allocated. It will refer to the memory of the object that is being passed from the calling statement. So this is the important point. So next slide is again about the constructors. This we have already discussed. Three constructors are there, and but the important point in this case is this constructor, and in this constructor we are passing it the reference. So we are going to discuss just this constructor, right? So here the object is being passed to the constructor. As we discussed earlier, the variable on the left hand side, width, height, and depth are the instance variables of the object with which this constructor is being called, and right hand side, width, height, and depth are the instance variables of OB. So let me show you the next slide. So this is the third method. Three methods are there. These are all our constructors, and one method is there in the box class, and that method is basically volume method. So this is another constructor. So four constructors are there. So this is basically one class. This is starting from this. This class is represented on two slides, and this is the rest of the part of the same class. So four constructors are there in this class. One constructor is without parameter, one constructor is with the object, one constructor is with three parameters, and the one is with the one parameter. So here is the name of the class that we discussed in the previous two slides. So again we will discuss only the important points. So first line will create the object, this we already discussed. Second line here will call the constructor with no parameters. This will call the constructor that has just one parameter. So this is the important line that I want to discuss with you, this one. The very first line has created one object, and I'm going to show you that object over here. So this is the object. I'm discussing this line with you first, right? And this will create one object, and the object instance variables values will be 10, 20, and 15, and its reference will be my box, right? So this is my box one. I'm going to write it over here. It's very difficult to write with the mouse. Okay, so my box one. So this time, now let's discuss this statement. This statement is invoking the constructor that can receive object. So in this case, this constructor will be invoked, and this my box one will be passed to OB as a parameter. So I'm going to show on this slide when the constructor will be called. This my box one will be passed to the constructor, and OB will become the reference of that. And here we are copying the OB width, height, and depth in width, height, depth. So what will happen with that constructor? This another object that it is creating with this line, with this new box, right? And this object, newly created object for which the constructor is being called over here, that constructor that I have shown you here, it will copy the OB width, height, and depth in the newly created object. So this OB width, height, depth will get copied over here, and this object that is now created from another object with this line, and its reference will be copied to my clone, right? So in this line, what we are doing is basically we are creating one object from another object. So indirectly we can say through the constructor we are copying the values of one object, instance variables of one object into the another object. Rest of the lines are same. We have already discussed these lines many times. Actually, we are calling the volume function with the volume method or function with different objects, and the result will get copied on to the left hand side variable, and with the next printf statement the result will be printed. So only this line was important, so that is why I discussed with you only this. So we conclude that in case of constructor, you can even pass the object to the constructor as well, right? So through this example, we studied that different type of members or parameters can be passed to the constructor. You can pass the object to the constructor, you can pass the fundamental data types, you can have a constructor that don't have any parameter, right? So this is what we discussed in this slide. Now let's come to the last two slides of today's class, and in these two slides we are going to discuss about the call by value and call by reference. So I have shown this with the help of a very simple example. So again, we have test class over here, and in this test class, we have one method. And in this method, we use two parameters, and both parameters are of fundamental type. So we, in the main, we created one object of test type. So because we haven't implemented any constructor in this class, so in this example, again, the constructor will be called, but the Java will provide its default constructor. So in this case, so this new test will also call the constructor, but this time because user defined constructor is not there, so Java will provide its default constructor. So this is the important point. So nothing is there, no instance variable is there in this object. So this will be the object that will be created. This is the object. It will not have any instance, and it's being stored by. Now we are initializing two variables a and b through 15 and 20, and this is going to print a value of a and b, that is 15 and 20. Then we are calling the method method passing a, b to j. So value of a will be copied to I. So this is the variable I. For it, 4 bytes of memory will be allocated. So this is I and this is j. And for a and b, again 4 bytes each will be allocated. So this is your a variable and this is b. Its value is 15 and its value is 20. When you will call the method, the value of a will be to I, so the value of I will become 15 and the value of j will become 20, right? Then when you will call it, first the value of a and b will be transferred to I and j parameter. After that, the body of the function will be executed, and in the body we are doubling the value of I and j. So this will change to 30 and this will change to 40. The value of this will change to 40. After that, control will come, will transfer back to the main, because this I and j are the local variable. So as soon as the control returns from the math method, these two variables will cease to exist, right? So the control will return back to the main method. In main, A and B, we are printing A and B. So A and B, its old values will get printed. So in other words, we can say that we haven't altered the values of A and B. So you will get 15 and 20. So the crux of this program is that if you change the values of the dummy parameters of a method, right, then the values of the actual parameters are not affected. So if you change I and j, then the values of the corresponding actual parameter a and b will not affect it. So this is the case. And in case of call by reference, so call by reference is performed in case of objects only. This is not performed in case of fundamental data types. So here, as we discussed in the previous slides also, this will create the object, this time AB as an instance variable, and this will print the values of A and B of object OB. Then we are calling this math method with object. So this will be called. So if this will be called, this is your OB object. I'm going to show it here. It has two instance variables A and B as shown here. So the value of A is 15 and that of B is 20. That these two values are initialized through this constructor. And this is OB. When this method will, this OB will be transferred to O. So O will start referring to the same as we discussed in the previous uh, lecture as well. So the object will be passed to the parameter O as a reference. So new separate memory for O will not be allocated. This is the important point over here. So if you alter the value of A and B through O, that means we are changing these two values and 40. When the control will to 30 come back to the main, and in the scope of this is to, but object is still there. It is being referred to by the reference variable OB. So when the control will come back in the next line, we are printing OB.A. So now we will get this result 30 and this 40. So what is the conclusion of this program is when we pass the object to the method, the objects are passed by reference, and if the through the dummy parameter, if you change the values, this O is the dummy parameter. If you change the values of the instance variables of the object, then the values of actual arguments are also get updated. So this is the case of call by reference. I hope you all get it right. If there is any